Okay, so I'm just going to go through right now the fundamental elements of how you can now defer the digital identity registration with Companies House, where you're being, or should I say all directors are being forced into the position of having to sign into the one login, of which the terms and conditions for doing so will leave you lacking any ability to do anything about any of your data then being used without your consent. As we already know it, a lot of the details of it, or should I say data, that's been stored by Companies House through their third party companies has not only been hacked but has been used and has actually left people vulnerable. So there is a lot of fail safes with this new digital identity and the request and targeting of directors. If you're not aware, you have up until November the 18th to do anything about it. So it is of utmost importance for you to act as soon as possible. On the screen right now, what you're seeing is an educational guide prepared by the iRise Academy. iRise Academy does only assist in education of individuals, grantors, who want to have a better understanding of exactly how all systems actually operate and remove the purposeful ignorance that is being forced upon people through indoctrination of educational systems and media. So it's important for someone who wants to be self-aware and have some critical awareness for them to choose whether they want to educate themselves or remain ignorant. Okay, so let's move forward so that this is a short video that you can use immediately to understand what it is you can do to defer that digital identity being requested. Speed is of the utmost importance and it is just in time, so if you already have done it, I do apologize. But there we go, we can't all be perfect. So, for those who receive this booklet without having watched the video, there is at the bottom here, you may want to let others know if you share this document that at the bottom of it they can just click there and that will open up a link to the link tree for iRise, and in there you should be able to go straight to our YouTube channel, and on there you'll then be able to watch the very first video, which will be this one, where it will be linked straight away. And if you want any information about the Academy, you can go there and etc etc. Offset the digital identity one login, which is blatantly saying that they cannot protect you or reimburse you if they or their third parties are ever cyber attacked. So, under the Companies Act 2006, the form that you're going to need is called the CS01. It's a confirmation statement, confirms that a company that is registered with Companies House essentially can file a confirmation of their existence. So you're confirming that these are the details I filed with you before, and we are continuing in this manner, and all the details you have Companies House are correct. So by using this form, this is the new form that they have. In fact, if we go down on this form, I think it is on, I will actually number the pages. I haven't numbered the pages, but I think according to this it will be on page 6 or 7, I can't remember. It should be just near the end where, no, that's the declaration, which means it's just before the actual description of how to fill the form in. Here we go. So it's on page 4. Okay, so on page 4 there's a link here for the form. I'll open that in another tab. That will take you directly to the Companies House site on the .gov website, and of course you have the file, the confirmation statement, and you have the actual PDF version here. Okay, so just so you know, when it comes to the actual form itself and the context of what we're discussing here, let's run through what's important. It's not in itself a digital identification filing, but the recent integration proposals between Companies House and digital verification systems, because of the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act, that have raised issues of data equality and belief-based discrimination, and that's what we're opposing here. All right. Essentially, we believe that for most people using this, there are some parts of the Equalities Act 2010, specifically Section 10, indirect discrimination, a policy or practice such as mandatory digital ID verification, may unlawfully disadvantage a protected belief or system. And that belief in itself is that you do have a right to protect who you are, and according to the contract it says, well, you're not going to have those protections. Section 26, harassment. Individuals must not be subjected to unwanted conduct related to belief, identity, or privacy that contains a hostile or degrading environment. Now, if someone else has your identity and they have hacked the system and information has gone out, of which this actually occurred with both Microsoft on the Azure platform, which basically is the authentication, and with Gmail as well. In fact, most people are not aware all Gmail accounts were hacked just 2 weeks ago from the time of this video. So harassment from individuals, you won't know who's got your information, and when you're receiving unsolicited phone calls and your information is out there, that in itself pertains to a harassment that you may actually be the subject of. So Human Rights Act 1998, Schedule 1, Article 8 guarantees the right to private and family life. Is that private if your information is floating around? Companies Act 2006, Section 853A allows lawful filing of this CS01 without digital verification, provided the information is accurate and current. Now, this is the latest form that I've pulled up. This is from March 2024. Yes, it's from March 2024. So it is the latest one that they have done. There is, at this date today, today being the 14th of November, I don't think there's anything sooner than this. So obviously, if you're an iRise Academy student or a grantor, you'll have a little bit more power in how you'll be presenting this compared to every other regular company director. So using this guide, you may lawfully file or defer the digital ID elements while maintaining full compliance and preserving rights under data equality law. So the intellectual property and identity rights. Now this specifically is for individuals who have registered rights or IP. Mostly that will be iRise Academy students and grantors who will have an IP or trademark certificate. So this is basically because they have a company that has taken ownership of the name, of which most individuals use generally to do business on a day-to-day, but they have protected that name because it is actually trading or doing business, or at least holding some tangible asset value based on the quality of the patented ideas that this individual is producing. So my personal name, likeness and identifying data are intellectual property under common law statutory copyright protection. Any digital replication, verification or biometric uses requires explicit license. Now, for the grantors in the iRise Academy, this is within your trust anyway, and therefore you won't need to produce the full trust deed or anything like that, but you will, of course, need to make sure that this is a statement that you include in the extra information. So just to be clear, when you do the online statement, it is less money, okay, and we'll get to that in a minute, but there is a place for you to be able to file that on the form. So we're going to come back to how you fill the form out. Let's continue with the education of why it is that you're doing this and what rights you actually have by doing this. Okay, so this aligns with Article 6 subsection 1 F of the UK GDPR, recognising any legitimate interest in controlling one's data use. So for individuals without registered rights, of course you do have a legitimate interest in controlling your own data. What you don't have, of course, is any of the IP or trademark. Okay, so that statement there may not be something you can use. So what I would recommend, based on for educational purposes, as I say, common law copyright declaration is a standard something that you can use, and by expressing it, it's the first time you're expressing it, and therefore it is something that you can issue instantly. Now, how you do it is you would initially have to create copyright by putting this statement, and there is an even more detailed copyright document that we have within the Academy, but it's best for you to go through the course to really understand what it is you're doing. It's not a standalone document on its own. Okay, so you put the copyright symbol here, and if you're using Word, a Word document, you can just press Control Shift C, I believe, or it may well be, yes, that's right, it's Control Shift C, or on the Mac that's Command Shift C, and that should allow you then to have the copyright symbol. If not, you can always press Shift or to and then press the number 9, so that will bring up the bracket, put the C, and then Shift number 0, that's the second bracket, and that will bring the C. So you put that before your name, and you put your first and last name. All rights reserved. Personal identity, name and likeness are protected expressions of authorship. That's the purpose. People say you can't trademark your name, or you will. That's what I know that the IPO will tell you when you call through, but for the purpose of authorship, it is 100% something that can be protected, and it is the reason why you also will find individuals sometimes cannot trade on their name. Now, without diverging, going into that too much, let's stick to this content. Maintain evidence of publication. So this is what I was saying, is that you would need to create a copy. You don't need to necessarily do a full affidavit or anything like that, but you need to create a proper common law copyright. There's some free stuff, free ones you can find online or whatever. As I said, the one that we use in the Academy is quite strong, and if you send it, what you need to do is send it to yourself. Just the old way of copyright was to actually send something sealed in an envelope to yourself, and it would keep you from being able to prove that that was the day you initiated copyright, and that envelope would never be opened until it was presented to a judge for proof of that copyright. So ensure you do that first before you send this off. And if you are sending it off in post, of course, then you will want to make sure that you have sent it out first class so that you get it quickly, so that it arrives to you before it arrives to company's house or somewhere like that. Alright, so completing the actual CS01 without the IP, the statement you would put, aside from the copyright declaration, is to say this confirmation statement is filed in compliance with Companies House Act 2006. The filer asserts data protection and personal authorship rights over identifying information pending formal registration. Now, if you have IP, i.e. you're a student with iRise Academy, registered mark. Now you need to put your actual trademark number. Of course, I know some of you who haven't been organizing yourselves correctly might have to dig it out, but you'll find it and tuck it in here. Digital or biometric representation of this identity is subject to intellectual property licensing. No consent is given or for automated processing or replication beyond lawful administrative purposes. So it's a very short statement, nothing lengthy, no massive affidavits, all this stuff. You just put that in as a clause in the extra information if you're doing the online filing. Preferably, I would rather if you were doing it by sending it, for the purpose of it gives you a little bit more benefits. For myself, I find that that's the best way. Why? Because by posting it, I can then actually attach the actual declaration and supporting annex document that we're going to go through at the bottom. So it gives you a really good the ability to defer where digital verification has become a prerequisite for filing, especially as directors. The requirement is itself disproportionate, really, and it impacts everyone's rights or their beliefs, especially intellectual authorship, privacy, or even the sovereignty of their likeness being out there and misused for the, really quite bad circumstances. I'm not going to go into too much detail right now, especially on this public platform. We will go into more drawn out things on our private platform. As I said, if you go on the Linktree, you'll be able to see where that is once you join the Academy. We have our own platform. We don't use Zoom. We have our own offline server, not online server, that is separate, and we don't actually share data with Google or Microsoft at all. Qualifying your actual likeness is qualifying as a philosophical belief protected under this particular case here, Granger v. Nicholson, and we can do a quick Google search and see if it is here. And find out where that is. No, that's not the one we were looking for. 1 second. I'm not sure why that didn't copy. I will look here. Okay. Yeah, so this is about protection of a religion or a belief. Now, for those in the Academy, the one good thing is you will have an understanding of how iRise is structured, and therefore under that belief in itself you will be able to use that. For every other individual, as I said to you previously, just the fact that it is your personal intellectual authorship is more than enough. Okay, so enforcement without accommodation may constitute indirect discrimination under Section 19 of the Equalities Act. So let's have a quick look at that. If you want to look at these acts, I think it's really important that you do your own research. As I said, none of this is legal advice at all or financial advice. We don't do any of that. We just educate you in the best way possible, giving you the tools and vocational education where you then can make your own decisions. So it defines indirect discrimination, which occurs when a provision, criterion, or practice is applied to everyone. What is that? Well, a provision is what has happened now, yeah? So, and before we just look at things, I hate doing this, but I say to people, if you're going to look on Google, make sure you check out, well, what is that link from? Well, this link comes from legislation.gov, so it's perfectly fine for us to actually ascertain that this is a summary of that page. It's what they, legislation.gov UK, provided to be found on Google. Do not just read things from Google alone. Always see where the source is from. All right, so when a provision, criterion, or practice is applied to everyone, but it's people, but it puts people with a specific protected characteristic at a particular disadvantage. To successfully claim indirect discrimination, disadvantaged person must prove they were put at that disadvantage, and the person or organization applying the rule must fail to show it is a proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim. Now, as I said to you, those with the iRise Academy education are likely to be in a stronger position to defend themselves because they already have certain structures in place to do with trust, to do with dormant company, to do with the way in which that they've positioned themselves with IP and asset protection, and therefore they will be able to assert themselves in a much stronger way than anyone without that. But for every other individual, just generalizing, we can look at the fact that in this particular case, he appealed on the fact that he had his own belief in that he was protected by the fact that he had a belief about what he thought climate change meant to him, and that was more than enough. And again, if you have the intellectual authorship, as I said, just your copyright here, you will be in a position to have that held up in court, but you must really know what you're talking about when you're processing that. So I cannot, as I said, verify that you would be fully protected using this without some of the education we have, and unfortunately we don't have enough time between now and I guess the 18th of November for you to fully get a full training, I guess, or full understanding. We will hold some kind of open webinar at some point soon, and I guess you can get a little bit more insight as to what we do in iRise Academy. So temporary compliance through this CS01, it helps you to maintain a standing while deferring that digital participation, and then that can be defended under the principle of proportionality. Again, another case law there that you can read. I would like you to really take heed of using the lexicons and the scholarly references that you can look up through Google to look up case law yourself, because of course if case law is the precedent, okay, the thing that the judge uses to make a determination as to which way to go in a case, then it's important for you to have full understanding as to what that is. So there are a number of educational references here that you can look up and you can have a look at in further detail, copy them, paste them into Google, or go to specifically, as I said, scholarly to look it up. And when you do, you can actually see how you can put together your argument. Okay, so I just wanted this to be a very short video to describe all of this and give you a rough context as to how we can defend the digital ID that's being forced upon all people. As I said to you in section 19 here, it's something which has occurred that is being applied to everyone, but it's putting everybody, especially directors of companies who own something of value, which is their own intellectual authorship if they are producing something with their name behind it. And therefore, it does put you at a disadvantage if a third party is getting license or getting the ability to use that information, especially without your consent. I did a lot of research into those third party companies, and they are misusing a lot of things without your knowledge, and this happens every day with everything. There's no point to get emotionally drawn into anger about why they do these things, because the purpose of a majority of these things is to rile up, get your emotional I guess the pull of your energy into feeling a certain kind of way, and you don't really need to do that whatsoever. So we'll go into further how you fill out the form so that you understand that, and then we'll look at the annexed addendum that you can also attach. Again, it is an educational document, and it's something that you can apply if you feel confident enough to use it, and if you don't, as I said, don't use it. That's up to you. Okay, so the CS01 is a statutory return that confirms key company details so that it remains accurate, replaces the old annual return, and must be filed at least once every 12 months under section 853A of the Companies Act 2006. I just want to put a little disclaimer right now. Some people may not need to wait or be tied to September the 18th, because they may have already received the request that they need to update it based on their company not needing to file until April or August next year, or whenever it is. So some people are not tied to that specific time period. For the rest of us, we may well be. All right, so filing confirms the registered address, directors and secretaries. All you're doing is you're going through and ticking what's appropriate and what's changed. Okay, so essentially, if none of these things have changed, all you're filing is you're accepting to say they're correct, and that the same SIC code, the standard industrial classification, is still correct. And it doesn't create a new company record, it just verifies the existing information. So you're going to confirm your company name was registered, the statement or the date of the actual filing itself that you're doing. Usually it's the anniversary of the first incorporation, or the date of the last confirmation, which you might have filed late. You don't need to add anything extra. And then registered address, at that section you'll be doing the same. If you wish, as I said, you may use the service address if you are someone who is in a capacity where they want to keep their home address safe. You're going to want to limit exposure of your data, so using a registered address, so a virtual address, will be better for you. Same thing with the director and secretaries. You need to confirm the names, their service addresses, okay, that's where papers can be served, their date of birth, and then if asserting anything about IP control over it, you're going to want to add a note when filing that in paper format or online with this statement here, that the director's personal name and likeness are subject of intellectual property and data protection rights held by the individual. Publication or digital replication of this identity requires compliance with Data Protection Act 2018 and Article 8 of the Human Rights Act. That's the European Convention Human Rights Act. But we also have the Human Rights Act here of 1998, I think it is. So this statement has no effect on Companies House publication, but it creates an evidential record of asserting it. If you do not assert it, then you cannot rely upon it later. All right. Same thing with the filling out for the person of significant control over the company. Someone who has more than 25% of the shares or 50% of the shares has a controlling right over the company. If that name is registered as a trademark or copyrighted work, that's an optional note that must appear that the PSC, their identity is protected under intellectual property and data protection laws, disclosed solely for statutory compliance. Now, if you're with the iRise Academy, you'll receive an email just giving you a little bit of a tweak in some of these wordings to use. The reason is you have a little bit more than what we're talking about here, and therefore your specific clauses may well be a lot stronger. So shareholders and share capital. Again, you're going to confirm you issued share capital and ownership. No need for any additional wording unless ownership of the company name itself is the subject of a trademark. In that case, a note in the internal company minutes that the mark is separately owned. Now, for those with dormant companies, you may well need to understand that that's going to be needed in the company minutes, but I will tell you now that your company, if something happens, your company can any time still be controlled by the Crown from the way that it is if you haven't got IP and if you then don't have another entity behind it like a trust, and therefore that trust, again, you don't want to follow the likes of the deputy prime minister who was recently you know made to let go of her position because she incorrectly did her trust and structure was incorrect, completely incorrect, and I'll do a full video about how you can avoid that in future. So you may need to do that. You may need to have something like a trust behind your company in order to understand what you're doing. And again, if you're part of the academy, you're perfectly fine with the clauses and the little different explanation that you'll be provided for the framework of filing. So standard industrial classification code, that shouldn't change. Whatever you've already got filed for that, you can see the full list on the government website, and you can also click there and open that in a separate tab. So for most who have a dormant, that would be 9999, and for anyone doing any other type of business, then you're going to want to find out which one you need to do. Oh, okay. Oh, they haven't got it here anymore. They changed things, did they? I might need to change the code before I give this out. Okay, so I'm going to copy that and I'll save that for later. Alright, so I'll make sure you have the right link in there on point 6. So, statement of compliance, it's a small declaration. The company has delivered all the information required under the Companies Act 2006 as at the confirmation date. So you sign as director or secretary or authorized person, and signing doesn't surrender any copyright or personal details. It's just to certify that it's factual accuracy. So don't get tied up into the free man of the land movement thing. You're just signing. Okay, so additional information. This is the most relevant area for adding a lawful declaration without affecting the form's validity. Okay, so if I'm not wrong, there is a portion on the paper form, the PDF upload, which we can have a look at. Oh, this is the digital version. So let's have a look at it here. And I've just gone through each section one by one. So essentially, you put your company details, the confirmation date we looked at the lawful purpose, okay, You tick, this confirms that the intended future activities of the company are lawful. Don't forget to tick that. And of course you need to put the name in. It does not matter if your name is uppercase or lowercase in this specific section. For the dormant companies, then you might want to, for example, put in like this or whatever, but at this point the purpose is for them to make sure that it's one of the fiduciary roles, okay, and therefore if it's a fiduciary role, then it's going to be full in full caps anyway, okay. All right, so it doesn't really matter. All right, so presenter information. Okay, you do not have to give any contact information, but if you do, it will help Companies House. If there's a query on the form, the contact information you give will be visible to searchers of the public record. Very important for you to understand that. Okay, so, oh my word, that's gone up, because if you see in my notes here where we're about to get to, that's not the fee I was looking at. Okay. Oh wow, that's gone up. Well, at least you can do a check or postal order. Anyway, I won't go into that right now. So yeah, right. So essentially, this is the CS01 in itself. All you're doing is you're saying that everything has been confirmed. Wow, so it's gone up to £62. Interesting. Okay. Whereas here, let's have a double check. Download and fill the confirmation statement form. Is this not the same form that we've got open? Surely it is. Yes, it is. Right, so you need to fill in parts 1 to 4 if you're updating information. It costs £62. If you're due to file annual return by 30th of June, you can download and fill in form instead of using the online service. Oh, okay, let's have a look. What is this one? Just very quickly. Oh, that's annual returns. Okay. That's for someone who had a company up to that time. That's different. Okay. Right, so I am writing this because I have looked at this quite in detail. So what I would say to you is this. You're going to need to do all of this. Okay. Enter your printed name. Once you've filled this form out, it tells you here how to send it. This form is available in an alternative format, I guess Braille and whatever else. Please make sure you've remembered the following: company name and number match. You've checked the company information you hold. You've ticked the statement of lawful purpose. You've shown the relevant changes made to your information. You've completed the enclosed part 5, which is basically your registered email address. You have authenticated the form. You have enclosed the correct fee if appropriate. Authenticated meaning you've signed it and you're an actual authorized person by way of what they have online, in terms of your name being linked to that company. All right, so you don't need to go see a notary or get it signed by a solicitor or nothing. Okay, right, so essentially you're going to add an additional statement to this. And where can you put it on this form here, which you can, this is the printed version. You're not going to be able to do that on here, and therefore you're going to need to actually add that to as attached to this form. So you're going to need to do it on its own. This confirmation statement is filed in compliance with the Companies House Act of 2006. The filer asserts rights of personal authorship and privacy in their legal name and likeness pursuant to the Equalities Act 2010, Section 19 and Section 26. the Data Protection Act 2018, Article 8 of the Human Rights Act 1998, I was right, and no consent is granted for digital biometric replication or identity tokenization beyond lawful administrative use. You may also cite your IP registration number here, but as I said to you, if you haven't got that stuff, just ignore this. But this is something you're going to need to do on a separate piece of paper on its own and print it secondly. So online, if you haven't got copyright, paper filing, best to do for yourself. Now, I did have it down as £40 because it was £40 when I last looked at it. I didn't know it had gone up to 60 quid, but hey, so has filing for a company now. It's no longer 13 or £12 as it used to be for a company to actually register a new company. It's now gone up to £50. So a lot of the things we were teaching, I noticed over the last 2 to 3 years, there's been so many updates to the point that this year has been keeping me back with keeping updated to the changes, and whilst updating and creating our new digital sovereign platform. And I say sovereign because it's not reliant upon any public services whatsoever, any private companies separate to iRise. It's fully funded by every student that's ever come into iRise. I literally have put everything into it and sacrificed my own time and life to do that. So a lot of the information has been updated and is as up to date as can be. But as I always say, it's for your education, and it's always your job to just double check and make sure that that is what it is at the time of publication. So maintain evidence of everything you're doing. Store a copy of your actual filed document. Don't delay in terms of filing beyond the deadlines. Try to make sure you're within it. If you are going to be late, there is an email template we also have that you can send in to let them know, but usually it's at their discretion. They're typically okay with you doing it a bit late, but ideally you want to let them know beforehand, not afterwards. Okay. So again, I'm not sure if I'll be able to put that on the public side. You might need to be in the academy to see that information. So relevant legislation, I've already gone over that, but what I wanted to get to is the declaration of likeness for intellectual property ownership. Again, this is just for educational purposes. For those within iRise Academy, you'll get one that should have your information on it in a couple of hours. From the time of publication of this video, it'll be a couple of hours when you receive it. Now, this declaration shows that being a natural person officer of the named company hereby declare that my personal likeness, name, signature, voice, other identifying characteristics constitutes original works of authorship and are protected as intellectual property under Copyright Designs and Patents Act of 1988 as expressions fixed in tangible and digital form. Trademarks Act 1994 were registered or application exists for personal or company name, and common law rights of passing off. What is passing off? Passing off means copying, essentially. And personality protection, revised in Irvine v. Talk Sport, 2002. It was a really interesting case. Again, I'd look into these things. So data and privacy rights, I further assert my rights under the Data Protection Act and the UK General Data Protection Regulations, Article 6, subsection 1F, where a legitimate interest in controlling processing of personal data is of the utmost importance to any company director. I believe that the Equalities Act 2010, particularly Section 19, is very important with the proof of how data has been mismanaged and not well secure within the third-party companies that government have been contracting with. Accordingly, any digital identity integration, biometric mapping, or automated replication of my likeness or name by public or private entity shall require my express written license or consent. It is therefore unfortunate that there are people who will be getting claims for violation of my own personal identification, and they know who they are, but that will be occurring. So, purpose of filing. This declaration is attached to the CS01 confirmation statement for the sole purpose of establishing an evidentiary record of authorship and identity ownership. That is the purpose of this, to make sure that you're maintaining lawful compliance whilst at the same time ensuring you're demonstrating good faith in filing. Okay, so you make your signature here, and you can go to a solicitor if you want, or you can get a justice. Well, I wouldn't say a justice of the peace, but I would definitely have a notary or a solicitor sign it. Okay, Commissioner of Oaths is pretty much a notary public. Okay, so you want to have them to sign this, and of course you can just copy this whole document here, right up to here if I'm not wrong, and paste that and make whatever amendments you need. So make sure you keep one copy of this with the actual CS01, and you want to make sure that your declaration above is witnessed. Yes, as used in other proceedings where I've said about how you want to make sure you keep evidence of anything in other cases before. We've talked about that. The declaration should be clear, and it doesn't alter the Companies House publication requirements. It supplements the record for equality and privacy protection, and therefore even though the form doesn't provide you all the things, places to put this, because when I put this together, I was looking at the older form, only to realize they just updated it with this one, which was 5th of March. It was the latest one, and therefore some of those things are not provided for, as you can see, on the latest version, and therefore what you'll need to do is put a lot of this in a blank form attached to it, okay, with that first statement being that you're, oh, I didn't mean to do that, with that first statement with regards to the actual filing itself being something that you're doing in line with the Companies Act, and therefore with it being in line with the Companies Act of 2006, you then are filing with an assertion of your right to personal authorship, privacy, and of course not consenting to the granting of digital biometric replication or identity tokenization beyond lawful administrative use. Okay, so that wraps it up. Hopefully that is straightforward. You do understand what to do. Of course, the comments might be full with questions and people talking. That's perfectly fine. If we can respond, we will as soon as possible. I keep an eye out on what the comments are on there. If there's any issues with YouTube whatsoever, we will end up having to have our own platform too. But as I say, that means we'll just leave little snippets on YouTube for those who have the YouTube, which again has adverts, etc., etc., which we might not be, supporting some of those adverts. So, in the end of the day, hopefully that was interesting. That gives you what you need. You can go ahead and do that filing. Time is of the essence, so please follow through by actually taking action as soon as you can, and doing it in the correct method. If you are going to be late to file, I would put an email to Companies House letting them know that your filing date is going to be late ahead of time. They usually respond approximately after about 14 days. You get an initial confirmation that they've acknowledged your email, and then you can let them know that they'll let you know that you have a reference number and that it's okay, and they'll expect you to file by a certain date, and then you can still follow the process. So don't always feel panicked with the time, but as I said, just make sure you evidence your contact with them at all times. Okay, I have nothing else to say apart from do follow, do subscribe, support the channel, share this information with others that don't have access to this knowledge, and we shall be providing more and more videos on this channel for you to actually be able to follow through with. Alright, take care, thank you very much for watching, and we shall speak hopefully in the near future.
Hey guys, quick update. We are literally walking on the bottom of the sea right now. This is all those in iRise Nation leaving the Matrix.
The iRise Nation Winter Collection, realigning all to truth and freedom. Shop the Christmas limited edition now.